Hi, I'm Will Raison, and I just want to touch on something that I think is very, very important. You've made your float choice, you're very happy, but there's little ways of tweaking, almost pimping your float, just to make it that little bit stronger, indestructible, not going to let you down. One of my favourites for carp fishing is the TD6. It's got a nice sized tip on it. The float itself isn't too long, which really lends itself to fishing in quite shallow water. It's very strong, very visible, but there's one or two little things I can do to it just to sharpen it up a tiny bit, just to give it that little bit of a personal touch. One is obviously hard as nails. This is something that gets used widely in match fishing. All I do is put a little bit around the eye and the tip. The rest of the float is unbelievably strong. That way it just stops any cracking if the tip gets bent a little bit, and then obviously if the float does crack, it's going to take on a little bit of water. Like I say, the float itself is more than strong enough, but it's just little things that can just make the float almost invincible. The next thing I want to talk to you about, and it's probably something that you've heard of, maybe you even know what to do, but a lot of people have heard of it and don't actually know how to do it, and that's tying the eye in. You'll hear a lot of good anglers say, yes, this is my favourite float, but you must tie the eye in. Basically, it's using line 010, 012, and what you do, I've got some line here. You need around about 10 inches to a foot of line. You put the line through the eye of the float as if you were setting it up. You can see the float's on the line there. And then, by holding one side, you whip it round the float, the opposite end of the eye. You can see there now that that's around the eye and around the body of the float. Then I'll just trim off the excess line. Then I'm going to tie just a straightforward knot on the line. Just switch hands. Like I say, it's tied the eye in, it's given it a bit more strength, so it's around the body, around the bristle, and back round and under the eye. That way it's all tied in. I mean, these are very, very strong floats anyway, but now it's going to be virtually indestructible. Just trim the excess line off. You can see the line now going around the tip, and then all I do with a little tiny bit of hard as nails, again, is just around the eye and around the tip. Only one coat. I don't like to put it all over the float because it tends to affect the shotting, and you can see that there now. Try not to drop the varnish everywhere. And you can see that there now, that float has been coated with a little bit of hard as nails. The body and the stem of the float is ultra strong. If there was any weak point in the float, it's where the bristle's going to just get cracked and then it takes on water. Now we tied the eye in and actually varnished just around the whipping. Leave that to dry overnight, and then in the morning, not only have you got your favourite float that's virtually indestructible anyway, but you've just tweaked it a little bit by tying the eye in just to make sure. And it's not a fact of trying to better the float or anything, it's just a case of underlining that fact that you want it durable, you want it tough, you don't want it to let you down. And there's nothing worse if you're fishing across on a snake lake, catching a few fish, you have one come off and your tip breaks or your float starts to take on water, you're fishing very accurately, then you've got to get another rig out, you've got to do this, this and this, and it's going to slow you down, especially in match conditions. And it's little tiny things like that that will give you the edge, speed you up and make you more efficient.